Okay, so shapes. Shapes is a very undervalued thing when it comes to book covers, but it's so important, it's so effective. Now, what do I mean by shapes? Shapes is basically any element that you add that's not your main image and it's not your text. So everything else is basically just a shape. So with this cover, what's the shape? Well, all of these illustrations are made up of shapes, but that's not the shapes that I'm on about. What I'm on about are these shapes here. So can you see workbook? Workbook is inside of this ribbon shape. So you can take this ribbon shape away and it will still say workbook and you can still make it look good, but this shape gives it an extra layer of professionalism or an extra bit of depth, an extra element on the cover, and it looks good. They use the shape effectively. Another shape they used is this rectangle behind first grade. They use this rectangle shape to make sure first grade stands out. You can use shapes to make it stand out. And they also use this badge shape to attract attention to what's actually inside the book. So even if you take these shapes away, you can still put the text and it's still going to be readable and people can still read it and the hierarchy is still there, but shapes give you an extra element and it makes your cover stand out. Let's look at some more uses of shapes. So with this one, there isn't really a shape for the text, but they did add this silhouette of I don't know what this is, a branch or whatever, but just by adding this, it gives the book an extra sense of professionalism. It makes you feel a certain way about this book, just by adding this shape, this element. Now you can take this away. It literally adds 0 to the cover. It doesn't tell you anything extra about the book. It doesn't tell you anything extra about the cover, but just by adding this shape, it gives you that extra feeling for the cover. I can't explain the feeling, but you know when you see it. You see this and you're thinking, oh, maybe it's a little bit more professional inside. It's more sophisticated. It's more for older people because you can't imagine a kid's book, a kid's cooking book having these branches on the side of the title. So this is a different way of using shapes. You can use different elements that match with the theme of your book. Now with this cover, there's only 2 shapes that I see here. And it's this circle thing here, which is the badge that we talked about. Everyone uses a badge. And then they also use this white rectangle behind the title. Now, if they just put the green letters just like that, they would probably blend in with the window and they'll blend in with the background. Some of them might look good, the others might not look as good. But if you add white shapes, white rectangles behind the text, then the green text just stands out. It looks great. This subtitle can use a little bit of work. And you see the recipes and big portions, a little bit of it doesn't really stand out. It blends in with the background a little bit, but that's okay. We're not here to fix the cover. We're here to talk about shapes. And that's how these guys use shapes effectively. They use a circle for a badge, and then they use rectangles to put behind the title to make the title stand out even more. Now, what about this book cover? This is a very simple book cover, but they still use shapes. How do they use shapes? Well, they used this ribbon shape behind sticker by letter. Now, just by using this shape, it automatically differentiates from the brand and from the title. So it's very easy to see that it's something different. So it looks like the designer used shapes to make certain elements of the title stand out. Now, this one you might not see any shapes. You might just see some text and some coins, but in fact, it used a line shape. Line is also a shape. You can see how it used 2 lines here to separate the coins from the title and then also the subtitle. So the designer used 2 lines here, but not just these 2 lines. I'm going to take this away so you can see the book cover. Not just these 2 lines, they also used a border. This is also a shape. This white thing around the book cover, that's a shape as well. We used a very thin border around the cover, which makes it look a little bit more professional and gives it some more depth. It just makes it look so much better. And then they also use lines on the title and subtitle, or in this case the subtitle, and then some extra thing here on the bottom. They use it to separate it. So you can use shapes to separate your title, separate your subtitle, separate an extra element of your cover, or you can just use it in the background or a border to just make it look more professional, add some more life to your cover. Because if this book cover didn't have the border, then it just wouldn't look as good. So you can use shapes to separate elements. You can use shapes to make elements stand out. You can use shapes to make sure your title is readable. You can use shapes to connect things together or to separate things. You can use shapes for a bunch of different things. I would recommend you create a bunch of shapes and test out and experiment and see what looks good and what doesn't look good, because design is a lot about experimenting. You might find something that looks really good and I haven't even talked about it. So please go out, experiment, do a bunch of variations of your covers, try a bunch of different shapes and see what looks good and what doesn't look good.